Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now last weekend we took a break from the usual lower cost stuff and took a look at this i9 14900K and RTX 4080 Super build for the sole purpose of seeing how GTA 4 ran on modern high-end hardware. Now with a little help from DXVK it ran really well, and even with the standard DX9 API we also got respectable FPS as well as frame times. Today, well, it's the turn of Crysis and Crysis Remastered, the 2020 re-release of the classic PC melter. So Crysis, in my opinion, still looks absolutely fantastic. This is the original 2007 release, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with this game. It's been melting PCs for over a decade and a half. Now visually, it's a little more toned down than the remaster. The colours, I think, are more natural. The remaster sort of ups the vibrancy a little bit, but both are respectable in their own different ways. I appreciate the art style of both games, and either are well worth a play in 2024. But how well do they run? So as you can see here, we're using the highest settings, which in the original game are very high. I'm using 2160p or 4K resolution with the anti-aliasing turned up all the way as well. So here we are just outside of this little enemy compound. The trees look good, the foliage looks good. Up close, things do start to show their age, and the difference between very high and low settings is still comical in 2024, but in a good way, because you can still turn this down so low that it looks like a completely different game, but it runs on absolutely anything. With the highest settings like I'm using here, it will still give modern higher end machines a good run for its money, especially when the settings are turned right up. As you can see, it is making the most of our 4080 Super at this resolution, which is sitting at least 90% utilization most of the time. Our i9 14900K on the other hand is sitting at less than 10% utilization, but it is still hitting that all-core 5.7 GHz boost speed. This must be the little enemy office here. Let's just grab hold of this laptop. Oh, download the data. We'll take this one. Won't be needing this. While we're at it, we'll get rid of the fax machine as well. No one needs one of those in 2024. But let's move on to Ascension, the more demanding air warfare level. Now, not only do we have alien enemies to deal with in this level, and not only do we have terrible weather, but we also have tornadoes, so we're going to need to watch out for those. Now as you can see, our frame rate is hovering around 60 FPS here, and there are a few more dips and drops below this figure. Now most of the time we're going to sit at around 65 to 75. I'm imagining that the average is going to even out somewhere around about 70, but I will have all the on-screen stats on screen that I'll put there during the editing process. Now I remember this level absolutely decimating the performance of my Pentium 4 rig back in the day, my granddad's Pentium 4 PC with a 6600 GT graphics card. Those were the days. The game actually ran okay, or at least the demo did, but when I got to this level all those years ago, yeah, I couldn't really play this game with a smooth plus 30 FPS. It was probably half of that, to be honest. As you can see here, I'm making light work of these alien enemies, though we are on the easy difficulty here. So let's play a little more of the level and see how things hold up. Right, so we're going to have to avoid this tornado as we get round the corner, because this is going to be detrimental to our gameplay progress here, and I've flown straight into it. How did I not see that? Here we go. Yeah, look at this. What an absolute disaster. No control of our aircraft now, getting blown about all over the place. Of course, this actually affects our frame rate as well, which you may have seen dropped into the mid-40s just then. That's going to severely impact our percentile figures, that's for sure. Yeah, I think we've just about been destroyed. Now, as I was saying at the start, Crysis Remastered has a completely different art style in my opinion. It's a lot more vibrant, but I still think it looks decent in its own special way. And the water effects still look good as well, but as I said, both are still very respectable visually, and it's entirely up to you. I actually played through the first one again before playing the remastered game, just that I could experience the differences firsthand with the visuals, and it's interesting to compare them side by side. So for the settings, here we have 3840 by 2160. We'll actually set the anti-aliasing quality to its highest as well, which is SMAA 2TX. As for the advanced settings, well, we actually have Can It Run Crysis here. This is the highest preset you can choose from. When it comes to a few of the settings, they will max out at very high, such as volumetric effects, game effects, post-processing, but everything else uses a Can It Run Crysis setting. We're not using any DLSS either, or the experimental RT boost. This is high settings, no expense spared. Now if we start off in this jungle level, once again, you can see that our frame rate is hovering at about 60 to 80 FPS most of the time. This one actually performs a little worse on average in these areas, which I think is to be expected with the newer release. The remastered version here is very playable with at least 60 FPS with the 14900K and 4080 Super, as you would expect. We're using over 300 watts of power a lot of the time with the card as well, and our VRAM is hitting at least 10 gigs. We're actually using closer to 9, but over 10 gigs has been allocated to it. Here we are walking through this pretty dense jungle part now. We're coming up on the same part earlier with the office and the fax machine. Let's just dispatch a few of these enemies. Oh, look, a little chicken. Oh, I did not... I thought I would put him down gently. Is he okay? We won't look at him. Yeah, let's move on to the Ascension level. So as you can see, Ascension this time around is actually a lot more consistent and closer to the performance of the earlier Recovery jungle level. I know they're both jungle levels to be fair, but this one has a lot more going on, and it was a lot more intensive with the original 2007 release. Here we're still hitting over 70 FPS, and before I got here I was wondering just how much performance would be impacted, but it turns out it's not that much at all, to be honest. In fact, I think our percentile figures, or at least that 0.1% low, was slightly worse when it came to the regular Recovery level, and things seemed a little more consistent here with this setup, if anything, which is quite surprising. As we get into this alien battle here, the frame rate is holding steady, though there will still be the occasional dip below 60 FPS, which is to be expected. Our CPU is hanging back at around 10% utilization as it was in the original game, using less than 100 watts of power, whereas our RTX 4080 Super is being fully utilized, using over 300 watts of power here and over 8 gigs of VRAM. As the level heats up a bit, things get a little more spicy. The frame rate is still holding up pretty consistently, as you can see here, with a few more drops towards 60 FPS. But all in all, can the i9 14900K and 4080 Super, one of the best builds you can put together right now, max out Crysis, or both Crysises? Yes, it can, at 2160p resolution. Even the original game will run with at least 60 as well, despite not being able to utilise the hardware as well as the remastered game. But let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. That's all for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next video. Let me know how Crysis and the remastered version runs for you in 2024 as well, down below in the comments section.